All right, we are live at 6 p.m. on the West Coast. Tonight, I am looking at Rebecca Jane's eating disorder story. This one's kind of similar in a way to the one that I did on Sunday, where I looked at Daniela Fernandez's eating disorder story. Young female develops anorexia, treatment center to treatment center, gets tossed around for several years. Although this one is like more severe, I think. You're going to see just a wasted childhood in this episode. So Rebecca Jane, she's still making videos, but this video is from 2018, summer of 2018. So it's, 3 years now. She has quite the channel. I've been watching her. So I imagine she's made quite a bit of progress since she made this video. I made some points. This one's going to be a little shorter, because the video is a little shorter. I think her video was only 12 minutes, so that made things a little easier. But it's been in the queue, and I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. So let's go to 42 seconds, see where things start. She had a good childhood. She had good parents. She had every advantage. I mean, she had the resources to go to treatment centers in the U.S. Okay, she's from Britain, and she lived in Hong Kong and Japan. She had a pretty cool childhood. I mean, acting, performing. Goes to show you can have the perfect childhood, great parents, great everything, and still develop this. Why did she develop it? Why did she develop it when she was so young? I'm not sure. Okay, I don't think anybody's sure about that. She mentions genetics, but who knows? All right, let's get to it.
Really into life. My family moved to Tokyo, Japan when I was 10 years old. That's actually when I got diagnosed with anorexia. People think that 10 years old is young, but I know a lot of people who've been diagnosed at such young age.
That does seem quite young, 10 years old. Again, why would somebody at 10 years old become anorexic? I don't know. Is there like an evolutionary basis for it? There is a theory that's like the migration theory, that some people have the anorexic gene because back in the day when food was scarce, the brain was more preoccupied with migrating to a new area than it was with food. That's one theory. I'm not sure how much research there is behind that. My question would be, why does it then affect young females more? Because a lot of people, when they're older, they try to lose weight too, but you don't see them going anorexic. I don't know. I haven't looked into the research as much, but let's keep going.
Puberty. And I had no reason to have an eating disorder. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you how. I didn't have a bad family. Didn't want to be thin.
Wasn't the childhood. Okay. It wasn't diet culture. So why? It's interesting.
And honestly, I think the cause of an eating disorder is biological.
Could be. I suspect it's one component. The migration gene, but again, we don't know. All we know is that she did. That's really all that matters.
So my family and I moved back to Hong Kong, and I was forced to start seeing a dietitian, and she basically set a meal plan for me. We were doing family-based treatment, the Maudsley method.
Did she say Maudsley method? Like mini Maud method? I think that's what she said. Mini Mod method is like, what, 3,000-4,000 a day. Not a bad idea to work with a dietitian, but you need one that really specializes in EDs. Not all of them do. It's like a completely different, it's like a different specialty. You get your RD degree and then you specialize. Okay, definitely room for them. All right, let's go ahead. This part here doesn't really make sense. And I watched it like 2 or 3 times and I still don't get it.
Me in my mind. Years from 10 to about 14, things were quite positive. And then apparently I went on a school trip. I have a feeling that I didn't eat.
Okay, so she went on a school trip, she didn't eat, and then what do her parents do? Remember the episode I did on Heidi Powell, and her dad tried to force feed her a burger? It was like the worst thing you could do. Well, that's what happens here. She goes on a trip, she doesn't eat, she looks emaciated, so her mother tries to force feed her.
So I came back, and of course my mum was waiting there for me with a burger, and I was just looking at food and I was like, I have to do this again.
Question is, why did she not eat on the trip? So I wish there were a few more details provided in this, but it's like, whatever. That's all she provided. Anyway, so she goes on the trip. Now she's in her first bout of anorexia.
With that, I just started exercising. At lunchtimes, I would run the cross-country route around school. I would take...
This is the thing, they just like, even when they're underweight, they're not eating, they just have this compulsion to move all the freaking time. So that gives credence to the migration theory that some people back in the day had this gene as an adaptation because they needed to migrate and keep moving and not focus on food. So now, how does that present itself? It presents as somebody who doesn't eat anything and just keeps moving. You know, they fidget, they do exercise in the room, they're always doing squats, they stand up, they walk for hours and hours. That's the idea here. All right, so she loses weight, and how do people respond to that? They give her compliments like that.
I was getting worse and worse into my eating disorder and becoming manipulative and just really lying a lot.
People would comment on it, which only encourages it. It's why you don't comment on people's weight loss. Okay, especially when they look really lean like that. Like, oh, you're looking so good. No, I've got your summer bod. It's just, don't say it. You don't know what the story is. All right.
And this was the first time that my mum considered venturing to the US. My first treatment center was in Portland, Oregon.
Not sure why, if she's from the UK, she went to a treatment center in the US. That part is kind of left out. At some point she goes to Portland, Denver, Miami, and New York. Like that's quite a range. I don't know why. Those are details that are missing from the story. All we know is she's in treatment.
Packed up all the kids, my two sisters and me, and we went to Portland. We stayed at the Ronald McDonald House, which is really cool. And so I actually ended up going back to treatment 2 more times. I just thought that I had been done so badly.
So she's just going like treatment center to treatment center. Also, what's not clear is why she's going from one to the other. Like, does one lack something and so she gets transferred to another? By the way, this is like super expensive, to go into a treatment center like this. You're looking at several $100s a day. You look 5,000-6,000 a month. It's like putting somebody in assisted living. You go into an assisted living facility, it's like 5,000-6,000 a month. It's the same thing in these treatment centers. This is not cheap. So she must have like well-to-do parents, or she must have a really good insurance plan, or both. I don't know.
That was kind of it. That's it. You can't force me to do this. And I just stopped eating at 18.
You can't impose recovery on somebody. That's the point. And I think one reason she's not responding is because she feels like it's being imposed. Like she doesn't have autonomy. And you'll see later in the video when she does have autonomy and she feels like she is an adult and she makes her own choices, that's when she does a lot better. And also because she's a little bit older. Okay, at this point, she's like 14, 15 years old. Imagine being 14 or 15 and spending your childhood in rehab centers and going from like one rehab center to the next. That's not much of a childhood. I don't think. Maybe she had a good time there. Maybe she met some friends in there. All right, let's skip ahead. So she doesn't like treatment. She feels like it's being imposed. She's not going to get good results. There's a warning for you. You can't force your child to recover. Okay, otherwise they rebel.
My mum looked at me and she said, "You can either go back to treatment or we'll put you into a psych ward in Hong Kong."
Don't put somebody in a psych ward. Anorexia is not you're not psycho if you're anorexic. I can't believe they even consider putting her in a psych ward. Like, what kind of results are you going to get in a psych ward? So I don't think they ever did, but still not the best idea. Your daughter isn't psycho here. She's just not eating.
Ended up staying in treatment for about a year and a half. For the first 6 or 7 months of treatment, I was fighting tooth and nail to get out, and I was using behaviors, and I was hiding a lot of food and exercise.
She wasn't being compliant. She didn't want to be there. And if she didn't want to be there, a year and a half, imagine being in a rehab center for a year and a half. It's like she had no childhood. But if she's not compliant, if she's not responding, what good is it? Especially if she feels like her parents are forcing her to be there. You don't want to feel like you're forced to be there. Okay. You have to feel like you're autonomous, even if you are 15 or 16 years old. I know this just in my profession, that giving the patient a sense of control, giving that patient a plan, that's really important. The patient needs to feel like that they are the ones controlling this, that it's not being imposed. That's a very old school healthcare, right? Like the doctor says, you need to do this, this, and this, and this. Okay. There needs to be shared decision making here. Of course, she's only 15 or 16. She can't sign documents, but still, even when the patient is young, the patient still needs to feel like that she's in control here. Like she is choosing rehab. Like this is her best option. There's a lot of psychology in healthcare. All right, let's move ahead here.
I really got on board with treatment. I had become really good at treatment. Got to the point where they let me out, and I went to a transitional living program, kind of like.
I like the idea of transitional living. You go from a rehab center to transitional living to freedom, instead of going from the rehab center to real world. We saw that in Daniela's story where she went from the rehab center, she did well, and then she went back into the real world and, she relapsed. Maybe she needed that transitional living. Of course, she was in Colombia at the time. Who knows what kind of resources they had. All right.
Half treatment, half normal life. My body, I was eating well. My body felt good. I actually felt really happy. I was really adventurous and I was meeting people. We were going to the beach all the time.
It's a good sign of recovery, going to the beach, meeting people, going out, right? Like your world expands. You're not so focused on weighing food and exercising all the time and burning calories. I mean, that's a really bad life, especially when you're at that age. Like there are so many other things that you could do. So what did she not do as a child that she could have done? Instead she spent her childhood in rehab centers. I mean, I'm not blaming her, but still, anorexia cost her so much time and so many experiences that she can't get back. All right, we are going to skip here.
Nobody was in my way to stop me, and I felt the consequences of it. It really hit me hard. I couldn't perform in school. I remember feeling like I was going to pass out every single day.
Because she didn't have enough energy, so she couldn't do what she wanted to do. Right. So telltale sign that you have a good diet is that you can do what you want to do. You can go to the gym, you can perform, you can act, you can dance, you can go out. When you don't have the energy to do that, it's not working for you, right? That's a very objective sign. So read the obvious signs. If you want to know that what you're doing is the right thing, ask yourself what kind of things can you do during the day? Are you able to show up and perform? And clearly she couldn't. I mean, she had the opportunity to be an actor in New York. That would have been cool. Okay. But she didn't have the energy to do it.
I put myself into treatment. I was a consenting adult. My eating disorder got scared, and once I got to a certain weight, I discharged myself. So
notice that she's in control now. And I don't know what age she is, but I imagine at this point she's like 17, 18. But when she enters rehab on her consent, like when she's doing it on her own, when this is her choice, that's when she gets the best results. It's not her parents sending her into rehab. That's the difference here.
Surviving, not much more than that. I was very adamant that I stayed at the weight that I discharged at. And at that.
So she's still obsessed with weight, and she's probably underweight, if I had to guess. Again, we don't have numbers here. But she still has that fixation, that obsession. Okay, I don't want to gain weight, even though I need to.
That weight, I was physically not dying, but that was not the weight that I needed to be. And my mind was still very calorie oriented, rigid. I couldn't, go out to eat meals. Very set, limited.
So she wasn't dying, but she wasn't thriving either. She was just surviving. So nobody wants to survive. Nobody wants to just breathe and eat. People want to thrive. So reducing your life to just bare existence is not really living, if you ask me. Like when you don't have any experiences, when you don't have the capacity to experience anything, you're not really living.
In that time, I met Tyler. So yeah, I met my boyfriend.
Dude, he's a stud. Well, let me see him again. It's Tyler guy.
In that time, I met Tyler. So yeah.
Woo, man, he's pretty good.
I met my boyfriend. He was one of the reasons why I noticed that I wasn't actually living life.
Maybe she needed somebody to show her that. And when you're enmeshed in this disorder, you're like self-delusional. You're not reading the obvious signs. I was not reading the obvious signs when I was 22, 23. Even it's obvious now, but back then it's like, oh, I'm doing the healthy thing. Like, no, you're not healthy. Your doctors don't tell you you're healthy. Your family doesn't tell you you're healthy. She was going through the same thing. She's just kind of like in her own world. And so she needed somebody that cared about her to say, no, you're not healthy. Like, you're not fine here. So maybe meeting this Tyler guy was the best thing.
Even though I wasn't dying, I wasn't living. It was very limiting to him because I couldn't do much more than kind of just be there and be.
You can't. That's my point. You can't do much. You know, you have nothing to burn. What are you going to do? No, you're just living. I mean, you're just breathing, surviving.
Because I was so entrenched in my eating disorder, I wasn't really eating more. I just made myself believe I was eating more. Always be fantasizing about.
Another thing that anorexics do is that they underestimate how much they're consuming. And they underestimate their weight. They underestimate everything. You know, not only do they usually have body dysmorphia, but they think that what they're eating is enough, and it's not nearly enough. So if they're eating 2,000, they think that's a lot when really they should be at like 35, 4,000. Okay, so they're not very good with numbers. Again, it's a warped worldview. That's what happens. Thank you, King. All right, a couple more here. I have a few more. I'm gonna skip there.
It took me a lot of doing the same thing over and over again, or listening to my eating disorder over and over again before I realized that I wasn't doing what I needed to do.
Sometimes it takes a while. Took me a while. It took me a long time to realize that what I was doing was not the thing that I should have been doing. Okay. It's obvious now. It wasn't obvious then. Because I had developed my own warped standards, and I kept repeating the same things over and over. And what seems abnormal became normal. Okay. What was once bizarre behavior became routine. And until somebody points that out, or until you like step back and take a look, it's hard to tell that. And I think that's what's happening here, is that she repeated these behaviors so many times it became normal. And then finally it dawned on her that what she was doing was not what she needed to be doing.
Recovery and what I needed to do in order to get myself out of an energy deficit was eat a lot of food.
A lot more than what you thought, right? So she finally realizes that she needs to eat a lot and gain a lot more than what she thought. Now, she doesn't give numbers. I don't know how much. I don't know who created this plan. I don't know how she determined how much she needs to eat. I don't know if she just started responding to her hunger, or she started eating ad lib. I don't know. We don't have those details, but it was a lot more than what she thought.
And not calorie count. Eat enormous amounts because that's what my body was telling me to do.
Enormous amounts. Okay. Now I'm not a big advocate of like all in, but she definitely needed more than what she thought. That's the point.
Actually hungry, and I had to realize that is my main source of information. If my body is telling me I'm hungry, that means that I need food. That means I need to eat.
Sounds so obvious. Sounds so logical, right? I mean, she was born that way, but after years and years and years of ignoring hunger, ignoring obvious signs, not listening to hunger, counting things, relying on external cues all the time. Now it's like this revelation. Oh, wow. Like I should respond to my hunger. It's to somebody who's not dealing with this, it seems so like obvious and logical, but it wasn't obvious to her. But I'm glad it was at some point.
So
Remember, this is 2018, so I don't know if she's still in that process. I imagine not.
That's the happy ending of my story, and I tell you what, there's gonna be so many more down.
I don't measure or calculate my intake. Okay, that's one sign. If you can do that, a lot of times it's really easy to just mentally calculate it.
Falls in my life. I'm pretty sure of that.
So stepping on the scale, if you have a history, especially a recent history of weighing yourself multiple times a day, it's probably a good idea to like not step on the scale. Okay. Listen, I still use scales. If you're trying to lose weight, you should use a scale. But if you're just coming out of anorexia and years and years and years of treatment centers and you have body dysmorphia, I can see why you wouldn't want to step on it. It's probably a good choice on her part.
But this is not going to be one of them. Thanks for listening to this story.
You're welcome. All right, so not the longest video, and I don't have tons of points here, but each story is different. And next time I'm going to look at something that's not anorexia related. I'm going to change it up a little bit, and there's like 10 million videos on this. So comments, thank you, King. You were amazing. Now I reached the conclusion that she is lying. You think she's lying? What do you think she's lying about? I don't know. I don't think she's lying. I think she's being upfront about it. I'd like to see some of her more recent videos and compare it to where she was in this video. I mean, her channel is more developed now, and she's 3 years older. Anyway, so I will do another one probably this upcoming Sunday. If there is a video that you want me to review, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will pick my own video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I plan to do a lot more of these live streams in the future. And thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.